In June 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus thought they had found their dream home in the idyllic suburb of Westfield, New Jersey. The beautiful 6-bedroom house at 657 Boulevard was everything they had hoped for, a spacious, elegant retreat where they could raise their 3 young children. But shortly after closing on the $1.3 million property, the Broaddus family began receiving letters that would turn their dream into a nightmare. Chapter 1: The First Letter. Just days after moving in, Derek Broaddus was at the house alone, painting and preparing for his family's arrival. That evening, he went out to the mailbox and found an envelope addressed in thick, clunky handwriting to the new owner. Inside was a typed letter that began innocuously enough, welcoming them to the neighborhood. But as Derek continued reading, the tone quickly turned menacing. "Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within?" The letter continued with chilling specificity, mentioning the Broaddus children and the renovations they had begun on the house. The author, who signed off as the watcher, claimed that their family had been watching 657 Boulevard for decades, and that the house had been the subject of my family for generations. The letter also included this disturbing passage. "My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out." Terrified, Derek rushed home to Maria and immediately called the police. The officer who came to the house read the letter and was equally unnerved. He advised the family not to mention the letter to any of their new neighbors, who were now all potential suspects. Chapter 2: The Letters Continue. Over the next few weeks, the letters kept coming. Each one became more invasive, mentioning details about the family's life that only someone very close by could know. The watcher wrote about the Broaddus children by name, referring to them as young blood, and asking if they had been found yet, or if they were too afraid to go down into the basement. The letters hinted that the house had some dark, hidden history, and that the watcher was obsessed with it. One particularly chilling letter read, 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. The letters weren't just disturbing, they felt like a threat. The watcher claimed to have control over the house, and the letters implied that the Broaddus family would never be safe there. Chapter 3: The Investigation. Desperate, the Broaddus family hired private investigators to try to identify the watcher. They installed security cameras around the property, and even reached out to former owners to see if they had experienced anything similar. The previous owners, the Woods family, admitted they had received one strange letter just before they moved out, but they had dismissed it as a prank and thrown it away. The Broaddus family also had the letters analyzed by handwriting experts, but no significant leads emerged. The police conducted their own investigation, interviewing neighbors and attempting to trace the letters, but they too came up empty-handed. The lack of any solid evidence or suspects only added to the Broaddus family's growing paranoia. They were convinced that someone in the neighborhood was watching them, but they had no idea who or why. Chapter 4: The House Becomes a Prison. The watcher's letters became more and more threatening, to the point where the Broaddus family was too afraid to move into the house. The watcher's fixation on the children was particularly alarming, with passages like, "Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who is in which bedroom, then I can plan better." The Broaddus family decided they could never live in the house, but selling it proved nearly impossible. The story of the watcher had spread, and no one wanted to buy a house with such a sinister reputation. In a last-ditch effort, the Broaddus family even tried to sell the property to a developer who would tear it down and split the lot, but the town rejected their proposal, citing preservation laws. The house that was supposed to be their dream home had become a financial and emotional nightmare. Chapter 5: The Ongoing Mystery. Despite all their efforts, the Watcher was never caught. The letters continued sporadically, but they eventually stopped altogether, leaving the mystery unresolved. The Broaddus family was left with more questions than answers. Who was the Watcher? Why were they so obsessed with 657 Boulevard? And what was it about the house that captivated them for so many years? In 2019, after years of trying, the Broaddus family finally sold the house at a significant loss. The new owners reportedly have not received any letters from the Watcher, but the fear that someone might still be out there watching lingers. Epilogue: The Unsettling Reality. The story of the Watcher house is a haunting reminder that sometimes real life is scarier than fiction. The Broaddus family's experience shows how a seemingly perfect life can be shattered by an unseen, unknown threat. The identity of the Watcher remains a mystery, but for the Broaddus family, the terror was all too real. Even now, as you read this, the Watcher might be watching someone else, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Perhaps they've found a new home to fixate on, a new family to terrorize. Or perhaps they're still out there somewhere, biding their time. The end. This is a true story, and while the case remains unsolved, it's one of the most disturbing real-life events in recent history. The fear and paranoia that the Broaddus family experienced are all too real, making it a truly horrifying tale.